Today, I am doing something a little bit unusual. I'm having an interview with husband, my husband that I married after my late husband, Steve, passed away. We've been married for about a year and a half. His name is Michael, and I'm here with his son, Michael, who we call Mike so we can keep them distinguished. Anyway, we're sitting here in Michael's home in Kansas, the home that he was living in before he moved up to Washington, and we live in my home together in Washington. Anyway, thank you, Michael and Mike, for being willing to sit here with me today and talk about your specific experience as a husband and son of a person that you loved very much who passed away, and how you guys came together to help each other work through that grief. I think what you've learned and what your experience was could be really helpful for a lot of men who grieve, who don't always know how to grieve well or what that even looks like.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's start with you, Michael. Share a little life sketch, where you're from, your family background, obviously your children, hobbies, anything like that.
My background, or?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I grew up in Arizona. I got married to Ceci. Actually, we got married in Houston, Texas, just before I went into the Army. And we had 2 children, Michael here, and I have another son, Paul. He's a great son as well. And so we lived a lot of different places. I was in the Army for 7 years, and Ceci was very good because she actually had a career before we got married, and she was willing to follow me around everywhere I went, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Even after I got out of the military, she still followed me around. So she was really, and because she always put family first before her own interests, which is something I really appreciate about her. So anyway, and then she was also, just to talk about her a little bit, since this is mostly about her, she was super, super friendly. She can make friends really, really quickly. And she was very steadfast in the things that she believed in, which are all things I really appreciate about her. So anyway, after moving around a lot of different places, we ended up in Kansas, and then that's where we were living when she passed away. So that's very briefly.
Thank you. Okay, Mike.
Hello, I'm Mike. I'm the son of Michael. Growing up, we moved around a little bit, because my father was in the military, and then after that, we moved around a bit because that's just the way jobs are sometimes. And I've lived to and from Northern Virginia multiple times, so I consider that to be my home. And so, currently living in Kansas, and I'm currently married to the very wonderful woman named Cassie. And that's that. I've moved around a bit, and I've lived Kansas before and came back. And so Cassie just happened to move to Kansas, and there's definitely the spirit brought us together because the odds of us meeting were very low with everything that was going on and everything. So other than my wife, that's it for my little family. And then we have 2 cats, Kita and Rafi. They're our little fur children. We love them very much. And then for, me personally, I work in IT. Been doing that for almost 8 years. Love doing it. It's always been a hobby of mine. I also do work on cars and, pretty much anything to do with computers. I remember when I first started getting into cars, my mom was telling me, you look like you're getting more patient. And I was like, yep. And then from then I was like, yeah, I mean, this hobby is really teaching me patience. And so she was always really insightful that way. But yeah.
That's interesting.
That's it for me.
That's interesting. So let's talk a little more about your mom. What did you love about her? What are some memories you have?
I remember my mom like taking me and my brother all kinds of places when we were younger. Whether it was like during the summer or after school or anything like that. And so like we were always going to the museums in downtown Washington D.C., where we lived nearby, and we used to make lots of visits to my father to meet up with him for lunch. And I remember doing that a lot. And it was always a really fun time. Um, and just I remember like my childhood home, so to speak. Like when my parents decided to start renovating it. I remember my mom just telling me and my brother, "Hey, you can help me with doing this and that," and like tearing out the parts of the carpeting, and I even remember painting a little bit and such, and I always remember my mom being like fearless in any of that. She wasn't afraid to just like start doing something and just continue on, even if she hadn't done it before or anything like that. And I can definitely see that in myself. Like when I first started working on cars, I knew nothing about it, but I was like, you know what? My mom can start doing stuff like yanking cabinets off the walls, then why can't I just start taking apart the parts of this vehicle and fix it? So, yep.
I love that. I love that is something directly, that influenced you.
Mm-hmm.
And your dad has talked a lot about how independent and fearless she really was, huh?
Mm-hmm. She wasn't scared to do, pretty much anything that she really wanted to do. So she just did it. And she always tried to do the right thing, regardless of how hard it was. Something I really, really appreciate about her.
Talk a little bit about the kind of mama bear she was with her boys.
Well, I just know she loved her boys more than anything. It's like sometimes like, do you love me or them more? It's like she can never really say that because maybe a tiny bit of boys. I don't know. It's pretty close. I just know she fiercely loved them a lot, and she would sacrifice anything to help them. Doesn't matter what it was. Her time, doesn't matter. She was always there for them. If they were sick, she was there to take care of them. She was very, very, very strong motherly instincts. I guarantee you that. So that was really good.
She was quite an advocate.
Yeah, she's definitely a strong advocate.
Well, so then her loss is really painful, to have the loss of somebody that amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Not just, she was a great person in a lot of different ways. So that's absolutely true.
Mike, what was it like in your family dynamic? Because I know your mom had a chronic illness. Was that something you were aware of, or was it just kind of background noise in your family?
She did her best to, I guess, push through it and try not to let it affect her or show it for many years. And so she was really strong in that aspect because, I wasn't really aware, a lot up until maybe about my late teenagers years. And so it was, it was when I found out, I realized that my mom was a very strong person, and she persevered through it, and still did her best as a caregiver. And so, when I was younger, not so much. When I was later, sure, it was a little bit tougher, but it was like, it was kind of like come to the realization. It's like, despite my parents being super strong and such, it's like, we all have our own things, and so it was just interesting to see, how that she was able to hold it together, and how she was able to push through and still be, a good mother.
That's amazing.
I can definitely second everything Michael just said. She never wanted to. She wasn't exactly hiding it, but she wasn't very forthcoming about it because she didn't want it to affect everything else she was doing. So she just kind of did her best to ignore it. I mean, obviously she went to doctors and things like that, but when she wasn't doing those kinds of things, she just trying to pretend like she was fine and did the best she can. Even when she was really, really sick, she's trying to do everything she could possibly do. She tried to still do it. She'd be in a wheelchair towards the end, but it's like, no, I can still make dinner. I can still wash my clothes, that kind of stuff. So she was really good about that to the very end.
That says a lot about her, because sometimes a chronic illness can feel like, like an extra member of the family that you're kind of tiptoeing around. But it sounds like she was remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, what was your reaction when you discovered that she had passed away? I know, Michael, you were at home with her. She passed away at home.
I mean, even though I knew that was going to come, I was still a huge shock at the time. So it's like everything that comes with shock, it was just, you don't know what to think. You don't, even the stupid things going through your head, it just doesn't make sense later. But I think of it as just kind of paralyzed and just don't know what's going on. Definitely had a lot of that.
And was it hard to call your boys and tell them?
I did call them. I don't know how it went from their side. I just said it pretty straight out. I just didn't try to sugarcoat anything. It's just, but I don't know if it was hard just necessarily, but.
How about from your perspective, Mike?
It wasn't, for me, it wasn't a big shock. I mean, I didn't know obviously when, but I mean, I always knew there was a possibility. Mm-hmm. And so, it kind of was a shock. You don't really think about that all the time. Oh, is this person going to pass away? I mean, nobody really thinks about that. I just remember I just finished eating dinner. It's a normal day. And then, I got a voicemail from my father, and I was like, oh, let me just call him right back after I finish eating. And I called him, and he just told me, it was really short. And, I remember him saying, I'm sorry. And at first it was really painful. Obviously I cried a little bit, but honestly, my next feeling was like, my dad needs me. Because I couldn't think of anybody else in the family that could like be there for him. So my father was in Kansas at the time, and I was living in Northern Virginia. And I was like, you know what? I can do this. I need to be there for my father. And I remember, like, I was already looking up the routes and everything. And then there was a huge winter storm that was going through pretty much the first half of the trip, if I were to go that evening. And I just decided against it. Mm-hmm. And I went early the next day, and I drove through the aftermath of this huge winter storm. It was still the right decision, because I knew that I wanted to be there for my dad.
That's amazing. That's so loving and kind. I love that was your reaction.
I really appreciate when he did that. I wasn't surprised when she died, but I was just shocked more as a medical thing. Mm-hmm. But as far as, the next day, it's just like, I was just trying to do, I don't know, I was still a little bit out of it for at least a month like that way, but I was just trying to do regular stuff, exercise, that kind of stuff. And then I really had no idea Michael was coming.
Really? You didn't tell your dad that you were coming?
No, I didn't, because I feel like my dad would have said, oh, I'm fine. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to come here. It's, because like it's a 2-day drive. It's a full 2-day drive. And I knew that would be his reaction. I'd be like, oh, I'll be fine. I expected him to maybe like come out and see me, and then like maybe go up to Maine to visit with the rest of his family. But, I was like, I was like, I know that he needs someone to be there, despite the fact that I knew that he was going to say not to come because he was okay. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
That was really nice, because I was so weird. I went for a run because exercise helps me when you're really stressed or bad things happen. I mean, I know everyone may not be for everybody, but that really helps me a lot. So I just finished a run, and I'm just getting in the car, and my telephone rings. It's like Michael's asking, "So where are you?" I just finished a run. I'm at the house. Why don't you come over here? And I was like, all surprised. So, okay. So it's only like a mile and a half from where I was running back to get back to the house.
How was that run back?
No, I didn't run. I was at the car at that point, so I drove back. But that was really cool to go see him. And then he was super helpful because I don't know how it is to other people, but just seeing her day-to-day stuff was kind of painful for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, the house was a little bit different.
You mean the indicators of illness?
Yeah, because she had she had the hospital bed, she had the wheelchair, she had just her clothes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So Michael, one of the things we did when we first got here, we picked up all those stuff and we just gave it away. It's like, oh, let's go up to, I can't remember where we took up, one of those places you give away secondhand stuff. Mm-hmm. So he helped me do all that kind of stuff, which I really appreciate. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's just, I don't know, I didn't need those daily reminders like that. I can remember her in my head, in my heart forever, but it's just, that's how I did it. So he was super helpful.
And do you think he probably would have said, no, it's okay, I'm all right? Would you have done that, you think?
I might have said that, so it's probably a good thing he did that.
But what I love that you brought out, Mike, is that, I mean, that's a really specific way that men can help each other grieve, is literally just by showing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I have some pretty great friends, and when I told a few of them that, they were all like, hey, we're here for you. If you want to talk, you can talk. And for my dad, it was just like, just being there and helping him, just do regular stuff. And, it was definitely a really good way, is just being there.
What I do appreciate, it's fine to say I'm here for you and all that, but what's even better is to like actually do something. Mm-hmm. It's like, I want to go over to your house and just hang out.
I'm going to drive down from Virginia.
I'm going to drive 2 days drive and we're going to hang out together. And we did. So we stayed here for like a week while we made the arrangements for the her remains and all that kind of stuff. And then we drove back to Virginia, where my mother's son is. We saw him for a little bit, and then we drove up to Maine, where my mom lived, and my sister was up there. So we got to spend a lot of time with family. And then, like a few weeks later, I finally drove back here by myself. But it was still good that I got to spend all that time with my family right afterwards. That was super helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was because we drove the whole way, so we got to talk all the way in the car, and then all the way up to Maine.
So what did that look like? What did you talk about on that trip?
I don't remember anything specific. We never really talked too much about this whole situation. It was just normal stuff. It's like, oh, what do you, just things people talk about, normal things. I can't remember anything specific. Maybe Michael remembers, but it's just remembers normal stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was just regular stuff. I mean, it was just me and my dad just being pals. I mean,
and so did you feel like that was exactly the helpful, like sometimes some people, particularly women, might want to spend the whole drive talking about, the emotions and feelings and experience they're having. But do you feel like that was exactly what was helpful, just being normal?
We definitely did not do that.
Yeah, I mean, the topic did come up a few times, talking about how we know that she's up there and she's watching down on us, and that, she's got her own job up there, and, so that she could help people up there. And, it was very brief. It was, but, for the most part, it was just regular, like, what's going on in life talk.
And I think everyone's a little bit different. If girls need to talk, or sometimes guys, I guess, if they want to talk about their feelings, that's fine. And if that helps them, that's great. I totally support that. But that's not always the best way to do it. You can just talk about normal stuff, can also work.
Right. And I think that's what's really good for people to hear is it doesn't even have to mean that you are grieving better just by talking about those hard things. It really is about each person and what works best for them. And so if you're not inclined to, dismantle every feeling you're having, that doesn't mean that you're not grieving and working through it.
Exactly. And that's kind of, I agree with that totally.
Yeah. It's like, I remember the 2-day drive. I mean, it was like a constant battle of like trying not to think about things and trying not to cry, which is very difficult to drive while trying not to cry and holding back tears. But, that was part of the grieving process for me. But like, once I got back to Kansas to see my dad, I was like, well, like this is the next part is, just being there for him and him being there for me too. And just talking with him,
Yeah.
That was really nice.
So what specific things did you end up doing when you were together here? You were doing normal things. Did you default to things you'd done when you were a kid? Did you find new things? What did you do?
Just a little background. And so when he first came, we're just mostly it was just taking care of the stuff you have to do. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, we need to get a plot in the cemetery. She wanted to be cremated, so we had to make arrangements for her to be cremated. Mm-hmm. Mostly it was the stuff you have to do.
Right.
But then we went back east and just spent time with the family. And then it's interesting what happened is a few months later, Michael actually came out and lived with me.
Right.
Which was super helpful because I was trying to do work and I was sort of doing it, but it wasn't probably the most productive time at work. But after Michael came back, I was able to be much more productive and do my work job like I really should be doing it. And then from that point forward, we're still grieving. It's a few months later, but we just did normal stuff like guys would do. We go, oh, let's go eat Chinese food. We do that like once a week or something. Mm-hmm. There's like 2 Chinese restaurants where we live in this town. So like, well, we went to this one this week. So next week we go to the other one.
Yeah. And then like, it was funny because like, and then like other stuff we did like, like I remember we replaced the fan exhaust in the bathroom upstairs. It's just something that needed to be done and something that we just tackled it together. And then just normal, just adult chores, upkeep of the house, right. Just regular stuff.
Right.
And then, going out to eat Chinese food every week and just, it was pretty consistent between doing stuff like, I remember like cleaning out the garage a little bit and him helping me do stuff in the garage, like set up lights and things like that. Because again, I'm into cars, so I need lights to see things.
Oh, you guys totally pimped out that garage.
Yeah.
Like, cannot underestimate how nice that garage is.
We did a lot of work in the garage, but we did. So we worked on a house. Another thing, we picked up a new hobby. We never really shot guns before, but we decided that would be something fun to do. Because we went to a church, like church activity, and they were shooting.
Yeah, it was with the Elders Quorum, right?
It was the Elders Quorum. So we did that, and it's like, oh, this is really fun. So we went out and bought some weapons, and it's like we started going to the range.
It was so funny, yeah, because I had been around some firearms growing up with like being in the Boy Scouts. I shot a couple times at a range, and it was like, But yeah, we we had this little event with the Elders Quorum and we were shooting 22s, and I was like, wow, this is actually a lot of fun. So yeah, we bought some and we started going to the range, and it was just like a new hobby that both of us just picked up and we spent some time doing together.
Slightly bigger caliber than 22s, but it was still fun.
That's right. And they're easy to get in Kansas.
Yes, compared to Virginia.
Or Washington State, for that matter.
But what I'm hearing is you developed some new rituals. You found some new hobbies. How did these things help you to work through grief?
Because you're just doing normal stuff. I mean, before she was always involved, so you do have to find new stuff because the old ones, oh, what do you want to do? Or, that kind of. If she's not there, it's like, oh, I need to do something different to replace that. So we just found new stuff to do. And it doesn't take anything away from her. We had a great time when she was here, but now I need to do something different. Otherwise, you're going to fall apart. What are you going to do?
That's a very, very good point.
Yeah, something of note of that, I had been living in like the same place for 6 years, 7 years, and I've been doing the same job for 5. And one thing that really was very apparent when after my mother passed was that sometimes you can't get too comfortable with what you're doing or what your situation is, especially if it's not all that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking with a coworker. Like I had given my job like 3 months, 4 months advance notice. And I was talking with my coworker, and him and I were friends. And I was telling him, I was like, it's like my life is comfortable, right? I have a good job, live in a nice place, right? But it wasn't everything that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you get stuck into the rhythm of like doing the same stuff over and over and over again without actually like growing or moving towards something that you want or something new even. And it was just it was one of those things where it was like it's time to grow. It's time to change. And it's a good thing. I mean, for me personally, it was a very good thing that I didn't get stuck, and just it was good to just move on and to do new things and move toward the goals that I wanted to accomplish.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a very profound thought,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because nothing in what you said was my mom's death made it possible for me to grow. It was like, here is this situation, and here is a crossroads,
Mm-hmm.
and it's time to grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I know in my specific situation, I didn't want to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was living the life I wanted, doing the things I wanted, and to have to grow felt really painful. But now looking at where I am back, I can see a lot of benefit in the growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that that was something you chose for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and recognized as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, and it was definitely painful. I mean, the first year, 2 years after, definitely it was painful to grow. I mean, sometimes it is. You have to experience new things and go through tough things, and and in the end, I mean, I'm definitely in a place where it's way more closer than what I wanted, and I've grown a lot as a person, and in many different ways, and not only from experiencing the loss of my mother, but just the experience of just going through growing and changing, because change is hard sometimes, and it's not always easy, and it's not always going to work out seemingly in the beginning, but it's definitely worth it to keep going.
Thank you. That's really, really, really important.
Now, I think these are just life sometimes happens, and you're either it gets forced upon you or you can choose it. But as always, if you want to be happy, you have to continue to grow. And if it takes, I mean, it's so hard to lose someone you love, but at the same time, it is an opportunity to do new things. I know for me, it was really hard because she had been sick for so long. So it's like, I loved her, really, really loved her, but I wasn't doing a lot other than because we couldn't really go places or do things. But
that's a common experience for people in a situation where someone has a chronic illness. It's that way for the person with the chronic illness, right? Their life is limited to what they had known before, and then the people around them, things are limited.
But it wasn't bad because
Right.
her mind was sharp to the end. So we had some really,
Right.
really good conversations and things like that. But then it's like, oh, now I need to do something different because I can't have those same conversations like I used to. I just, like, what am I going to do?
Right, right. Can you relate to this idea? When Steve, years and years ago, first got sick, and he got really sick, we didn't have a diagnosis for a long time. And so things just became increasingly more difficult and limited for him. But in my mind, I pictured our lives having gone from like this very intricate tapestry with colors and textures to more like a stick art drawing, as far as, things were kind of, all of the peripheral stuff may have been gone, but it still had a beauty to it, like a Picasso, right? Very simple. And yet it was our life. And I
can relate to that.
Right.
It's still it's different, but it's still very beautiful.
Right. And that, and that's not to disregard the practical difficult things. There are practical difficult things that you can't get around, but you can still have a life that is meaningful, even with so many things that feel normal kind of pushed to the periphery.
And it's not forever. That's the other thing, because I know she went to whatever you want to call it, heaven or spirit paradise, whatever you want to call it. So it's like she's just going to wait for us there until we get there. And in the meantime, she'd want us to be happy. So we're doing the best we can.
I agree. So speaking of her wanting you to be happy, Mike, what do you think she would think of Cassie?
She would love Cassie. They both liked cooking, especially baking. And Cassie's a very strong woman who isn't afraid to be her own best self advocate and try to resolve things. And then she's not afraid to do things, on her own. And my mom was very much like that. But Cassie's also a very kind woman, and she is my biggest advocate now. And she loves me very much, and I know that my mom would definitely agree with my description of my wife.
She is amazing.
I absolutely agree that she would have loved Cassie.
So that brings up kind of, this is kind of a hard thing, right? You have this most important woman in your life. How do you introduce your mom to this new most important woman in your life? How do you include or describe her? How do you bring her alive for Cassie to understand?
I mean, it's a lot of little things, it's like, oh, I remember this experience with my mom, or, oh, we're eating this. My mom loved this meal. And, it was just, it just comes up and just naturally, because like I still think about my mom, and I still have some really good memories, and I don't mind sharing them. I mean, I almost never cry when I bring up these small things, but sometimes I do, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you do, and you need a hug, but I mean, it just comes up naturally, honestly.
Along those same lines, obviously we're married, but since we're both widow, it's easy for me to do the same kinds of things Michael was just talking about. It's just like, oh, Ceci really liked this, or whatever. Because I'll sometimes say stuff like that, or tell you a story about something that happened to her, and it's good because you do the same thing with Steve sometimes, and we have the understanding. And just because you get remarried, you're not taking anything away from their prior relationship. You say you're not taking anything away. I just had a great marriage. Now I have another great marriage, and it's just they're two different things, and neither diminishes the other.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree, and I think that's something. I think it's something that people would probably wonder about, like how do you get married to, again, after you've been married, after you've lost someone, can you love that new person? And I mean, in my experience, I only know what it's like to marry someone widowed because Steve was widowed and you were widowed. And so my experience will be unique, I think, to most people's experience. And yet, my memory with Steve is that he was so loving and made it so apparent that he could love me and have a relationship with me, that I wasn't a consolation prize or a replacement for what he had lost, that this was something new. And it was something I actually struggled with myself. I felt like I was a consolation prize. But that was never coming from him. That was, my own insecurity. And it was after, we had our first baby together, Ben. And then when we had our second baby together, that completely shifted this understanding in my mind, because I had this one little person that I absolutely adored, and then this new little person, and all of the love that I had for this new little baby took nothing away from the little son that I already had. I was able to love them both, and it was unique, and one didn't take away from the other. And that did a lot to help me understand how that dynamic can be. Does that
Yeah, it's the same thing when we first started dating. I wanted to make sure that you would not, because you were widowed too, so I want to make sure you were. This has to be a real marriage. I was really, really intent on that. It can't be like, we're just lonely, we need to be together. No, this needs to be a real marriage.
Right.
And that's what it is. So.
Yeah, that's true. You said that to me too. So here's a topic that sometimes it's kind of helpful. Do you get triggered by moments of grief? I know, Michael, you mentioned that, there are times when you might think about something with your mom, and it can be emotional, and sometimes not. Is there any kind of pattern to that, or does it just sometimes just come out of the blue?
Most of the time it's just random. I mean, it could be like, it'll come up in conversation where, I don't remember the answer to a question, but I know that my mother would have known the answer. And yeah, and that's definitely tough. And then other times, I mean, you could just be driving down the road and all of a sudden you think of something and then you're like, I miss my mom.
Yeah. Is it weird for you with your dad and I being together?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Really? Never? Not even from the start?
No.
See, that makes you unusual, I think, of the 6 combined children that we have. Actually, it really is unusual. Some of our other kids have struggled more with that. But why was that different for you? Why did it not feel weird for you?
Well, I trust my dad's instincts. He knew what he wanted, and life is too short. I mean, that's another thing that I really learned after my mom's passing, was like, life's too short to not work towards your goals or things that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was like, my dad deserves to be happy, and if you found someone that makes him happy, great, I'm happy. It never once occurred to me to think, oh, it's too soon, or oh, he's just lonely. None of those things ever came up to me. It was always, that's so great. I am so happy for you. That's amazing. I always wish the best for you. And yeah, I mean, I never once thought anything else about it.
I really appreciate that, by the way. That's really nice. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm super happy for you and Cassie. That was a little bit different situation, but I'm really happy for you.
So happy for you.
That was one of my biggest concerns, because when I got married, Julie, I was really concerned about how Michael's going to be. He lost his mom. He's by himself. And I said, oh my goodness, I have to go visit him lots and lots and lots of times. But then right after I found you, he found Cassie. I was so relieved because now I don't have to worry about him so much.
Exactly. I know it was a matter of really specific prayer. You prayed a lot,
right,
for that situation, and hoping that the Lord would have an answer so that Michael wouldn't have to be alone, as you didn't have to be alone.
Yes, that was a big concern of mine. But the Lord answered by sending Cassie his way.
Oh my goodness, that is so true.
Mm-hmm. Definitely agree.
Yeah, and she is perfect for you. So you touched a little bit, Mike, on how you've changed as a person through this experience. And a lot of it sounds like just an appreciation for how short life is. What other ways do you feel like you have changed?
I mean, yeah, definitely. We definitely talked about how life's too short. Keep going towards the goals that you always say, "Oh, I wish. Oh, that'd be nice." But actually, taking the steps toward it. But it's also like my mom was always a big advocate. Especially with anything medical related and everything. And I'd been living on my own for a number of years, and my mom was still helping me out with a lot of that. And one thing I had to do was learn to be an advocate for myself, in all kinds of things, including the things that are related to medical. And, also just, 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 it's like, being kinder to people. And, it's my mother passing was one of the most traumatic, or not the most traumatic, one of the biggest things that happened in my life. And it's like you always hear about people saying, "Oh, I lost a family member or I lost a parent." And you're like, I'm really sorry about that. But when it actually happens to you, it's a whole new perspective. And it's one of those things where it's like everybody you talk to is going through something. It could be something really big, it could be something small, but it really doesn't matter. It's you need to be nice and kind to people, no matter who you're talking to or what situation it is. Just being nice and smiling to somebody could make someone's day, because you have no idea what's going through their head and what's going through their life. And so just having a greater appreciation of those who've been kind and nice to me, because I don't know how it feels where you feel sad because of a loss, and just someone saying something nice to you can make your whole day.
I thank you for sharing that. I can totally see that in you. I absolutely have seen that really steadfast kindness in you. And I didn't know you before, and yet your goodness, your kindness, your sensitivity to what others may be going through really comes out
Mm-hmm.
in your day-to-day interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say that about Cassie too. Just extraordinarily kind, gentle.
Absolutely.
Person.
Yeah.
I think both Michael and Paul are really good people. Him and his brother both are really good people, and something Ceci taught him really well how to be that way. But if these things happen, you just have to become even better in some ways. I know for me, it's just I had to learn how to organize my life a little bit better, because she was really good at, oh, you need to do this. She'd make a list for me to do. It's like, these are all the things we need to work on.
Yeah.
And now she's gone. It's like, oh no, I need to make my own list.
Right. It's truly something we both struggle with. We were both married to detail people, and we had to figure that out.
But I'm more spiritual now. It has brought me a little bit more aware of other people. I was already kind of on that trail with her being ill, but even more so since then. So the whole process made me more aware of it. But now I have more time to help other people. Over before it was mostly, I didn't have as much.
Yeah.
So it's good.
I love that aspect of grief, that the awareness aspect. I love that your eyes are opened. It's like in Pokemon Go, right? Where you're looking for these little Pokemon that you can't see with your natural eyes, obviously. Grief is like putting on a new set of lenses, and you see things you didn't see before.
Because that's how Ceci was. She was so good at seeing other people's needs. So I didn't really have to look too much. She's like, oh, this person, you're kind of like that too. This person over here needs this or that. So, okay, I'll go help, because I didn't necessarily see it. But it's when she pointed out to me. But now she's not doing it much. You kind of do some of that, I'll admit. But I'm trying to be more aware of these type of things. I haven't been told. I'm still need a little bit of work on that, but I'm getting better.
Well, thank you both for sitting with me and sharing your experience. I really appreciate it. You're really good men, and I'm thankful that you had each other through the experience of losing Ceci. And thank you for sharing her with me. She sounds like such a remarkable person, and fun and missed and loved. So before we finish, I'll ask you both. Maybe we'll start with you, Mike, and then Michael, you can finish. What do you think it means to grieve well?
Don't forget to do the little things that you like to do, whether that's talking with a friend or hanging out with your family or, listen to music, whatever it is, don't let it stop you to forget that the little joys in life are what they are, the little joys, and they can really help you get through, loss, for sure.
Thank you. That's a really good insight.
I totally agree with that. You can keep their memory, your love for them in your heart, but you need to be able to do all the things that Michael says. Enjoy it, do the things that you really want to do. Remember them, but just live a good life afterwards.
Thank you.
I think that's how you can honor them really well.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.